Hi. So another video on how to answer the questions this week. This is about question 4, how to answer question 4 on paper 2. So this question, as you will remember, is all about feelings, attitudes, viewpoints, and perspectives. So how the writer sees sees the world, really. What are the writer's views? What are their attitudes? What are they feeling? In the exam, they might use any of these words, but they all mean pretty much the same thing. You're trying to get the writer's viewpoint on something. So you're comparing, like you do in question 2, but this time you're concentrating on what the writer feels and thinks about things. So what you need to do really is it's easier than it sounds. You just need to think, well, what is this writer's viewpoint and attitude? And how do you know? How does the writer get that attitude across? Do they use any particular words and language or phrases? Do they use any structural features? Do they use humor? Is their tone light or serious? So you're marked on comparing ideas and perspectives, finding the things to compare, showing an understanding of the different opinions and viewpoints, and analysing how these writers' methods are used. So we'll break that down. We'll look at Lost Boy again as an example. You did this for homework, I think, so you've got some idea of how to do this already. But for this question, you need to refer to the whole of source A with the whole of source B, and you need to compare how the writers convey their different perspectives and feelings about their children growing up. Now, the first thing you need to do is, of course, underline the relevant bit of the question. So you're only talking about their perspectives and feelings about their children growing up. You're not looking at anything else. You're not looking at you're not looking at the children themselves and what they like to play with, like you did in question 2. You're looking at the writer's feelings about their children growing up. How do they feel about that? And it says in your answer, you could, what we always say is never mind about could, you should. This is what you should do. You should compare their feelings, compare the methods, and support your answers with references to the texts. In the exam, it always says could, but it doesn't mean that. So just simply look at these two people. Here's Stuart Heritage and his son. How do I feel about my child growing up? And here's this Victorian lady and her son looking a bit tragic. And she's saying, well, how do I feel about my son growing up? And how do you know? In the exam, you're probably unlikely to have time to draw up a great big table and start doing this. But this framework kind of helps you through the process, hopefully. So I'd say one of the viewpoints from source A is from Stuart Heritage, is that he's amazed at how quickly this has happened. And then one of the viewpoints in source B is that she just feels very sad and regretful about her son growing up. So some evidence for Stuart Heritage's amazement are that he blinked and his son had changed. He said his son's developments ambushed us. He felt ambushed. The methods used there, so blinked is an exaggeration. He didn't blink and his son had changed. Obviously, it took a bit longer than that. So that's an exaggeration. Ambushed us is a metaphor. His son didn't really ambush him. So he's used that metaphor to try and get this viewpoint across here. And he uses the exaggeration blink to show that it feels like no time at all since his son was a baby. And ambushed shows that how surprised and maybe disturbed his parents are by the developments. The evidence in source B is she uses the phrase my little boy is lost, which is quite emotive language and really makes us feel sorry for her. It makes us empathize with her and her loss. And she repeats this phrase, I want. She says, I want. She wants the crumbs on the carpet and the spilt paste. And repetition of this want just shows us how desperately she wants her little boy back. Now remember, you haven't always got to comment on the methods. If you just do this maybe 2 or 3 times for each answer, if you just do this 2 or 3 times in the answer, that will be enough. But this just gives you an example of what we're talking about. So have a look at the answer I've done here. and look at where I've compared the ideas and perspectives. Where have I found the relevant things to compare? Where have I shown an understanding of different opinions and viewpoints? And where have I analysed the writer's methods? I've just colour coded it to make it easy for you. But remember, this is what the examiner's looking for. They're looking at your answer and thinking, right, where have they compared the ideas? Where have they found relevant things to compare? Where have they shown an understanding of opinions and how, and where have they analysed the methods? So if you want to pause the video and maybe have a read through this and just see where I've done those 4 things. Hopefully, you got something like this. I mean, some of them overlap, methods and explaining ideas overlap a little bit. So it doesn't matter if you haven't got exactly this, but you'll see I've got quite a good range of colours. I've got quite a lot of, I've got yellow, I've got orange, blue, and green. So this shows where I've met all the things that the examiner is looking for. So now it's your turn. You need to do assignment 4 based on the schools and homework. Reading that you've been doing. For this question, you need to refer to the whole of source A together with source B, the father's letter to a family friend. So not all of it, just the letter to a family friend, and compare how the two writers convey their different attitudes to parenting and education. In your answer, you could compare their different attitudes, compare the methods they use to convey their attitudes, and support your ideas with references to both texts. Remember, when it says could, it means should. So do these things. And remember, you are just comparing how they convey their attitudes to parenting and education. And remember, you're only looking at the father's letter to a family friend in source B, nothing else. Focus your answer. Really think about what the examiner is asking you, which is basically, what are these fathers' attitudes towards parenting? Okay, good luck. Very excited to read your answers. As ever, Jill and I are in the chat room, so please ask us any questions.